are on part 4. So where we left off was covering all of our surfaces and putting in our little notepad. So I'm thinking today we will work on putting our fabric in here and getting our signatures and our little folders ready to put in. So hopefully you've been joining along with me. If you have, I would love to see your creations. I am on Facebook and Instagram, same name as my YouTube here, so you can tag me over there, and also feel free to post your creations on my Facebook page. So I just have taken some fabric scraps out of my scrap box, just some neutral colored ones that happen to match. And I've just cut them into a rectangular-ish, not exact because I didn't use my rotary cutter. I just hand cut out a little strip of fabric and I went ahead and frayed the edges up. And so I'm just going to glue that in there, and it really serves no purpose other than covers up this tape that we added. Looks pretty, kind of makes it look a little bit shabby, and I guess you could say maybe it adds a little bit of stability to our spine area. I am going to take my finger here and kind of smooth that glue out. Maybe it won't show through my fabric quite as much if I do that. Okay, I think that will work. I'll go over here and do that to the other side now. So, busy day today. I had some shopping to do, which I don't like to do right now with all this, COVID stuff. So I try to stay out of the big town. I just go to our little teeny tiny one-horse town near me. It has a little tiny grocery store in there, and our county is so small and the town is so small that our case numbers are very low. So I feel a whole lot more confident going in to a smaller store like that. So I had to pop in there and pick up a few things, and then we had a guy come and look at a couple of our trees we need to have taken down. So had to meet with him. My day has gotten away from me. It is 4:30 in the afternoon. I'm gonna have to start thinking about what to fix for supper. Well, I know what I'm gonna fix. I'm gonna have to start thinking about getting it fixed. Okay, so I've done that. We're gonna go ahead and set that off to the side and let it dry. Oh, actually, real quick before we do that, I do want to talk to you a little bit about binding methods, so you can keep that in mind when you are getting your signatures ready. So if you remember, I think in the first or second video of this series, I showed you this twine binding method. And so all I've done is I've made my signature of papers that I want to use. I've bound them with a 3-hole pamphlet stitch, and then they slide right in and out of this twine. It's just a simple twine binding. All you do is you wrap it around the spine area of the book and tie it off, and then these slide in and out the way kind of the way a Midori notebook works, like your Midori traveler notebooks. Instead of using elastic, you have twine and no eyelets. So that is an option. Actually, I don't know why I'm putting that back. I want to use it to show you a few other things. Another option would be you could just sew your signatures directly into the spine of your book. Okay, you just punch right through the spine of your book and sew them right in. So that is an option if you don't mind your threads showing on the spine. So there's an option for you. You could do this like a hidden spine method, where you bind all of your signatures to paper or fabric. You sew them to that, and then you bind, or you sew all these in, and then you put it in and you glue it down, you know, okay. If you've not done that, there's tutorials for that. So you could do a hidden binding method. One more option you could do even, you could take elastics and some eyelets, and you could punch holes and put eyelets in and run elastic here, and you could do that sort of like a Midori style, okay? All right, so that's just a bunch of options for you, and if you don't know how to do any of those methods, look it up on YouTube. There's tutorials for how to do that. We're not gonna get into that here. For my purposes for this video, we're gonna go with the twine method where we just are wrapping it around and tying it off. Okay, enough said. I just wanted you to keep that in mind while you were doing your signature prep. Okay, let me gather up or show you what I have gathered up. Let's see, let me set these off to the side for now. Oop, the dog's snoring down there. If you were able to hear that, that was the dog snoring. These are going to be my signature covers. I'm going to have 3 signatures. So I have chosen HBPage 6, HBPage 4, and HBPage 3. Those are the file names. That's what I've chosen for my signature covers if you're wanting to do it exactly like mine. On the reverse side, I printed HBPage 9, and I printed these all on a heavier, I believe this was 44 pound or 48 pound presentation paper. Okay, that's going to be my signature covers. I'll make sure I put all these file names below, just like I did in the other videos. I wanted to use a few of these journaling cards that are in the kit as pages, as little small pages. So I have a random assortment of sizes. So I plan on cutting the journal cards. I cut this strip, that'll be 1 set of pages, and that'll be another page, and so on. Okay, so that is, if you want to do the same, HBA4, JC1, JC2, and JC3. Okay, and then I printed, I believe that was Nature Remedies number 5 on the back. It was the plain tan. Okay, so I'm going to use those for pages. I am also using HBPage 7 on one side and HBPage 2 on the other side, just printed on regular paper. I'm using that for some pages in my signatures. Okay, and then I just have a random assortment of papers, some dot grid paper. I've got some calendar pages from a 1962 and 1967 date book. I've got a book page from a 1960s gardening book, which I thought would be neat to include because it has writing space on the back of the paper. These would be fun to kind of put collages on later to decorate. I have some parchment paper, tracing paper. I have some coffee dyed invoice and ledger papers. I have some regular coffee dyed paper in here. Okay, so that's what I'm going to put in mine. So that's what you're going to want to do now is go gather up all your papers that you want to include in your journal section, your signatures. Okay, you are also going to want to trim these down to fit your book. So I am using a Reader's Digest book. I'm not sure what kind of cover you are using, but for a Reader's Digest book, I decided this was a pretty good size. I may go slightly smaller than this, and that was about 7 1/4. So I think I am probably going to make my pages be about 7 1/8 inch tall. And I liked the width of these. I didn't want to go too long in case I decided to put some tabs on my pages, then it wouldn't interfere with my other spine over here. So it gave me some room to have, you know, lace edging, trimmings, or some little folder tabs sticking out over here. So I like the width of my signature, and that is 5 inches. So I would want to cut my paper to 10 inches and fold it in half. Okay, so I'm going to go trim all my papers to 7 1/8 by 10 inches. And then I will be right back. Oh, I'm also going to go ahead and ink the edges if I need to on any of these. Okay, I'll be right back. Okay, so I have my 3 signatures all put together of what I want in them and where I want it at. This was what I was talking about those journaling cards that were on the sheet together, about cutting them apart. So they looked like that on the sheet. And then I printed this on the back side. And then once you cut them out as a set, you can use it like a page. And so that way I've got some variety, you know, some small things, some big things in here. Okay. All right. I know somebody will ask, how many sheets do I have in here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I have 12 sheets of paper in here. So you go ahead and do as many as you feel comfortable with. So all we're going to do now is just a simple 3-hole pamphlet stitch. So if you are very comfortable with how to do this, you can skip ahead. But what I like to do is I have my upholstery thread here. I like to use upholstery thread. It's super, super strong. 1, 2, 3 lengths of my book times 2. So I double that. It's basically 6 times the length of my book. But I like to run my thread through with double strength. So, okay, so I'm just running it through with double thread. Then I usually just take some sewing wax. You find that in the sewing aisle, or just a little stick of beeswax, whatever you have. I run my thread through it. I don't really care for that wax as much as I like this just plain old beeswax. I think that other one is more paraffin than beeswax. Okay, so I just like to wax up my threads, and it keeps them from getting tangled, and I think it helps hold your knots a little bit better while you're tying. Real quick, the other thing I like to do, I'm sure you've seen me do this little trick before. I like to tie a little paper clip on the end. Just 1 knot. That's it. And then that way, when I'm doing this, I don't pull my threads through. Okay. Now, I know I could put this in a book cradle and punch it and all that and mark my thing, but I'm just doing a simple 3-hole pamphlet stitch on 12 sheets of paper, so it shouldn't be too hard. I'm just going to poke my holes first, and right about there is good enough. I don't have to be exact because I'm not binding it into the book. I'm just binding it separately. So I punched a hole about a half to 3/4 inch from the top, half to 3/4 from the bottom, and somewhere thereabouts in the center. I'm going in through the inside to the out. I'm going to come back into one of my holes, either the top one or the bottom one. And see, that's what that paper clip's for. Stops my thread from going through. I can pull and pull and pull and pull on this, but I'm not going to pull it back through my hole. Okay, I'm running back out through the center again, being careful not to come up through my threads. I want to come up next to them, not through them. Pulling it tight as I go. Going back in through the back side, in my top hole now. Okay, now I can remove the paper clip, which if you've only tied it once, it slides right off if you grab it. Pull these threads nice and tight. Pull these nice and tight. Okay, and then I'm going to take my needle and I'm going to run it under these threads down here, under these threads. Okay, pull it up nice and tight and tie a knot. Running it on under those threads right there gives you a little bit of leverage as you're pulling your thread tight. Okay. Easy peasy. That's it. Trim my threads. If you feel like your knots are going to slip at all, then just put a tiny bit of glue right there on your knots, and that will hold it nice and tight forevers. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and sew a pamphlet stitch on these other two signatures, and I'll come right back. Okay, so I have my signatures all bound with a 3-hole pamphlet stitch, so my papers are together and won't run around loose in my journal. Let's get this prepped. Here, let me close up this container of needles over here. I don't want those to end up on the floor. Okay, so the simple twine binding method, I'm just using some baker's twine here. I used regular cotton twine in the other one, but I don't know what I've done with it. I misplaced it. So I'm going to use baker's twine, and I am doing about 7 to 7.5 times the height of my book for the length of my string. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 should do it. I'm going to throw another half on there just for good measure. Trim that off, and I'm going to go ahead and tie a knot in it so it doesn't come untwisted. Okay. All right. Give myself some room here. I'm just going to hold the knot here at the bottom, and I need to make sure that I wrap around to the inside of my spine however many times I have signatures. So I have 3 signatures. I need to make sure that I have 3 strings getting wrapped around to the inside. Okay, so there would be 1, okay, and 2, and one more time, and 3. Okay, so I'm just going to take my strings. It's a little bit of a handful. Okay, you take one in one hand, one in the other. You can kind of twist them like that. Okay, hold it down with your finger, and then run this one underneath the other 3. Okay, run it underneath there and tie it in a knot. And it will hold them all together. Okay, I'll do it one more time over here. I'll go ahead and cut my string off, and I'll come right back and I'll show you how I did that one more time on this side. Okay, so I've got my string 7 times the height of my book, 7.5 times. I'm going to zoom this down just a little bit lower so you can see closer in case you haven't done this before. If you've done this before, you know, this is not a big deal for you. All right, I'm holding it down there at the bottom, wrapping it around. That was 1, and I'm going to have 3 file folders, so I need to go around 3 times. That was 1. There's 2. There's 3. Okay. I've got my 2 strings, okay, and I'm just going to twist them a little bit like that. Tuck this one underneath all of these. Okay, and then I'm just going to tie the 2 strings in a knot. There we go, and then you just trim them up. Okay, and so then these are kind of adjustable. You can spread them out if you need more room. Okay, and so now on the inside I have my strings that will hold my signatures for my journal and strings that will hold my little file folders. Okay, let's go ahead and put our signatures in real quick. We're just going to slide it under here, and if you find they're too loose, just untie your knot and tie it a little tighter. If it's too tight, you'll know because you will be putting too much stress on the edges of your spine of your book. So you'll know if it's too tight. If your book is kind of old, then it's going to want to crack like this one right here. So that would be where a little piece of cardstock or something in there, keep that a little bit sturdier, where that would come in handy. Okay, and number 3, just slide that right in there, kind of like a traveler's notebook. Or you could sew it straight into the spine, like I said, and do a permanent binding. Bring our other one back in. Bring our prototype in the picture. Okay, so now we're going to work on our little file folders that go in the back. And I'm just going to pull these out. Should have taken this stuff out of them earlier. Now, these were made just using one sheet of paper. I'm going to show you what I did for mine. If your book is a lot taller than mine, mine's a Reader's Digest book and it measures about 7.5 inches in height. If your book is a lot taller than mine, then this method for making these probably won't work for you, and I'll show you why. Okay, for my file folders, I used, Nature Remedies number 2, Nature Remedies number 3, and Nature Remedies number 4. That was the 2 butterfly sheets and then the sheet with all the herbs on it. And then I printed Nature Remedies number 7 on the reverse side. Okay, that's what I used for my 3 file folders. Now, let me dump these things out. Okay, for my file folder, I used 1 sheet of paper for each one. And what I ended up doing is folding up the bottom to create the folder part. See? So that's what I'm saying. If your book is taller than mine, you won't have enough to fold up down here to create the little pocket. So if that's the case, and your book is pretty much anything taller than 7.5, let me see, do I have some scrap cardstock? Yeah, that'll work. It won't show up very well, but what you could do is take a piece of scrap cardstock or print something out, and you could actually just trim that, okay? Glue here and glue along the bottom, okay? And then you've created a folder pocket, okay? You could even round the corner right here, and then do another one on this side, piece of cardstock, round the corner, glue down, and glue across here. And then when you open it up, you'd still have your 2 pockets on each side. You would just have to create the pockets with a piece of cardstock. So you can do that if you're doing, taller than what I'm doing. I just thought, well, I might as well just fold these up and use them as my pockets, and then I don't have waste and I don't have to make the cuts. Okay, so to get the file folder tabs on my little mini folders here, I actually just went and got a regular file folder out of the cabinet that had a tab on it, and I just traced the tab out. Okay, so that's all I did there. So I had a center one, a top tab, and a bottom tab. So I just went and traced them on the edge of my folder here. That's what I did for that. If you don't have a file folder you can get a hold of, the digital kit comes with little tabs that you can cut out and put on your folders. So you could just cut the edge straight and put the little tabs on them like that. So that's something you could do there. All right, I'm going to grab a file folder, be right back. All right, so I do have a file folder I can use, so I'm going to use it. And I am going to show you my process of how I did this. I lined up the top so it was nice and straight, made sure the tab was straight over here with the edge of my paper. And I traced this part right there so I can trim this off. And then I didn't care for the length of the tab. It seemed rather big to me for my little file folder, so I just downsized it. All I did was just slide this up a hair, and I decided, I want my tab to be about that long right there. So I just, oops, broke my pencil lid. I just slid it up a little bit and marked it where I thought the tab should be. Okay, draw that down. This is all going to be trimmed off. Okay, and then I slid my file folder up and I lined up the bottom so I could get this nice little rounded edge over here. Okay, and that's what I did. So I'm just going to take my scissors and trim that off. Like I said, if you don't have access to a file folder, you can just use the little tabs that came with the kit and just keep straight edges on your folder. Or you can just create something on your own. Doesn't have to be exact. Okay, got that. And, oh, I know, one more thing I needed to do. I wanted my file folders, let me take a look. No, I guess I left them full size. Okay. Then I just folded it up, and I didn't go all the way to the top with it. I left a little space, okay? Oh, you know what? Goofy me. I didn't even need to cut that on the bottom. I don't know why I did that. I wasn't thinking that's going to get folded up. What I did want to cut, excuse me, is this part up here on that part of my file folder. I thought that felt weird. I thought, why does this feel weird? Like I shouldn't be doing that. It's been a long day already. Bear with me. That'll be my one and only mistake. How's that? Just one. I'm allowed one, right? There. See? Just like a real file folder. Okay, don't worry about doing that in. We don't need to do that in. That was just me being dumb. Okay. All right. My file folders, I wanted them to be, apparently I wanted them to be 6.5 inches. Oh, I know, because that left me a perfect height for doing my little folder inside. Hey, I've only done this once, so cut me some slack, right? All right, I'm holding my file folder with the top edge over here, and I'm going over to the mark I have designated, which is 6.5 for me. That would depend on the height of your journal, where you want it, how deep you want your pockets to be, and whether or not you're even doing pockets like these in your folder. Mine need to be marked at 6.5. Okay. Why does that feel weird? Like it didn't fold on the score line properly. Well, I'm just gonna have all kinds of troubles, right? There we go. Okay, I'm going to cut right there. That was my original fold line. I cut right there up to my new fold line. Okay, and then I'm just going to cut a sliver at an angle up back up to the center. That just gives me a little bit of room so that when this thing is closed or I'm closing it, they don't rub together like that. So just give this one a little cut at an angle up to the center. There we go. See, gives them some breathing room in the middle. Okay. All right. And then let me look, see if I did anything else special. Looks like I rounded the corners on them. You wouldn't have to if you didn't want to. And I'll probably do that off camera. And I'm going to ink all of this off camera, okay? But that's my very first little file folder. Now that I have a template for the tab, I'm ready to do my other two. So this is the one I want in the middle, I think. So I'm just going to, my husband's going to run the weed eater outside, and Carmen doesn't like it apparently. So I may have to go calm the dog down. I'll be right back. Okay, whew, that took some coaxing. She does not like the weed eater. All right, that was at 6.5. So I'm taking my middle file folder and I'm going to mark it again where I want it folded. Okay. All right. Now I want my tab to not be in the same place as the other one. So I'm just going to slide it down. Oh, maybe about right there, I think. Should be good. Yeah. And I'm just going to trace it. I'm going to use it as a template. I just kind of want to make sure I have everything nice and lined up though. Okay. Trace around that tab. And then I need a line up here, okay, for my tab so it'll stand out. So I'm just going to use my piece of paper to follow along. Doesn't have to be perfect. And okay. I want that nice little edge up there though. Nice little scalloped edge. I like that. Kind of finishes it off. Makes it look like an actual file folder. All right. And so see, when I trimmed that down, I went all the way, even with my little pockets down there, because I didn't need that sticking past. I'm going to kind of trim that up at a little angle. So I'm going to start over here, work my way back to my fold line over here. The reason I'm doing that is because when I have my pocket, I don't want it kind of sticking out past. So just trim it up at an angle, just a hair. Okay. Fold this, not quite to the top like I did the other one. And kind of want to make sure, I'd like them to be the exact same size. So I kind of, you could measure that with your scoreboard, but yep, that's close enough. Close enough. Folding it there. I'm going to cut again. to my new fold line right there. And again, I'm just going to cut these back a little bit at an angle so they don't bunch up in the middle. Oh, that's getting loud, isn't it? I'm not going to complain. He's doing yard work. Okay, there we go. There's our second file folder. And I could even kind of trim this one up at an angle, just a hair. Okay, round the corners if I want to, ink it all up, and there's file folder number 2. Oh, wait, I want that nice little pretty scalloped edge right there. Just gonna lay that on there and mark it. And cut that one. There, see? That looks nice. That looks better. All right, there's number 1, there's number 2. Now we're ready to make our third and final little file folder. So this is my last sheet of paper for that. I'm going to go ahead and score it where I want it to go, which was at 6.5 for me. Go ahead and fold it. Okay, now this time I'm going to go ahead and fold this back the opposite direction, and I'll show you why. So here's my first file folder. You want to grab that because this will make it easy. You can use the tab for your first file folder to make your last one, so you have your tab at the bottom. So we're going to go ahead and line that up down there with our score mark at the bottom. Maybe we can even go just a little bit above it, and that'll be fine. Okay, I'm going to trace that. Okay, and I like having that little scalloped edge up there, so we're going to put that in up there on the corner. See, it comes in handy just using your first one you made has a little stencil. And then just finish that down like that. Okay. All right, so I'm going to cut here. There's my tab. My tab comes back in, and here's now why I folded this back out of the way. I didn't want to get my tab, accidentally have my tab be where my pocket was going to be. I'm just carrying my line down just a bit so I know how much to cut off my little pocket part right there. You'll see, it'll come together. I cut up. There's my tab. Should have drawn it in pen, and then you would have been able to see it better. But if I got off on my cutting, then you'd see the ink. Okay, just like that. There's where my little pocket's going to go. See? I'm going to cut it back at an angle, just a hair, up to the score line at a little bit of an angle. That gives it a little more room here next to my tab. See? All right, now I'm ready to fold it. Not quite over to the top right here. And I'm just going to double check, make sure I'm pretty good on my size. Yep. And again, I'm going to cut that center score mark up to that score mark. I'm going to cut my pocket back at an angle. I'm going to do the same thing for that piece. It's just easier for me if my page is oriented the right way for me. And I'm going to trim this one up at an angle just a little bit, up to the score mark. There we go. Ta-da! 3 file folders. Okay, I'm going to go through and I'll round all the edges and ink it all up before we get together next time. Oh, I also want to put that little scallop in up here in the corner. Okay, I'll do that off camera, but you know what I'm talking about. So where's my other little file folder? There it is. There's number 1, here's number 2, here's number 3. I'm going to round the corners on the pockets, ink the folders all up, and then they will go right in here. Okay. If you don't want things falling out, what I did is I left this part unglued. Okay, they're in the center, but I put some glue over here on the outside edges to keep things from falling out of the outside of the folder. If things fell towards the center, it wasn't that big of a deal, but that way things won't fall out of the folders. Okay, so ink it all up, glue your little edges here and here, okay, and then they'll just slide right in there. All right, get that done, and we will be ready for the next part in the next video. I will see you all very, very soon. Happy crafting. Bye.